Welcome to City Cinematheque, where the art and pleasure of the movies are the subject of serious discussion. I'm your host, Jerry Carlson, and I teach film studies at the City College of the City University of New York. Today, we continue our series, Hitchcock Before Hollywood. We'll be seeing the 1935 smash hit film, The 39 Steps, starring Robert Donat and Madeleine Carroll. This is where Hitchcock really becomes Hitchcock in a number of ways. It's his first great success of the innocent man on the run plot device. We'll be talking about that and a number of other things after today's screening. Joining us will be film historian Max Alavarez, a noted expert on crime and thriller and suspense films. Now, take the 39 steps. Welcome back to City Cinematheque. I hope you've enjoyed this journey across the UK with Richard Hannay. It's a stunning film, as modern today in many ways as it was the day it was released. There's a lot to talk about here, and it's a pleasure to welcome to City Cinematheque film historian Max Alavarez. Max is the author of the crime films of Anthony Mann, but a number of people may know him from the lectures he gives. He gives multimedia presentations on film history and has done so in any number of venues both here and across the nation. Welcome to City Cinematheque, Max.
It's an honor to be here.
Great.
Jerry. Thank you.
Super. So let's start with how Hitchcock, where this film fits into Hitchcock becoming Hitchcock. It's British Gaumont. So what's that all about? How does this happen?
Hitchcock had gotten his first break partially through the efforts of Michael Balcon, who was co-managing the Gainsborough studios on the outskirts of London. And it was through Balcon that Hitchcock began directing films like The Lodger. Hitchcock leaves Gainsborough to go to British International, where he makes some interesting pictures, but feels he's being just handed rudimentary assignments. Balcon is going to bring him back into the fold with this new operation, Gaumont British.
Okay.
And that is going to result in The Man Who Knew Too Much, which is a tremendous success that leads to the 39 Steps. So it's through Balcon's efforts that Hitchcock is now finding his métier as a director of intrigue and suspense pictures.
Right. And so tell us a little bit about the background to actually Hitchcock's selection of this as a property, as his project.
He was a great admirer of the author of the 39 Steps, and which the novel had been based in 1915.
Right.
And Hitchcock actually, from what I understand, was interested in the sequel to the novel, Green Mantle, I believe was the title, found it a little bit too ambitious, thought this 39 Steps was a little more streamlined and accessible. And that's how he came upon that project to follow this great success with The Man Who Knew Too Much. But in doing so, he realized, having reread the book, there has to be some changes here. And so there were elements that Hitchcock changed from the novel. Obviously, it was updated to contemporary England. The romance with the Madeleine Carroll character was added. The Crofters sequence with the Crofters' wife was added, and the music hall climax was also added as well.
Yeah, so he's, again, this is a highly creative adaptation. He's harvesting what he wants from the Balcon novel, and then he's, adding what actually, it's so interesting what you name, he's adding what will become set pieces, which have this great cinematic richness about them, the things that he's bringing. I would also point out, because I've looked at the novel. The novel was best-selling, back in World War I, and it's very explicitly, anti-German because of its setting. And it's very interesting the way in which Hitchcock, at any number of moments, wants to, take politics out of the films and retain the kind of emotional arc of the suspense, but not get it messed up with, particular political or ideological debates at all. And so this is one of his first instances of that kind of cleansing that he wants to do. And it's also one of the reasons that, we're not talking about this as a propaganda film, some 75 years later.
Absolutely, because we're trying to get a sense of the Lucy Mannheim spy character. She's accented, a German accent. Right. Is she a German spy? Is she a double agent? That is kept very vague. the 39 Steps themselves were not quite sure what the political affiliation is there.
Absolutely.
And that was a deliberate choice that a few years later, obviously, they would have had to be more specific.
Right, absolutely. Well, in fact, we can leap forward. We can get to Hitchcock in America and say that the film that he makes with Robert Cummings, called Saboteur, is one of his, fairly explicitly anti-fascist films. Foreign Correspondent, by the time he gets to America, I mean, he was strongly anti-fascist, Hitchcock, but so he makes these films that are much more explicit because they are engaged during the war period. Here he's much more interested in the cinematic potential of all of these scenes rather than a particular political agenda of any kind.
Absolutely, and I would even add Lifeboat to that.
Absolutely.
Trilogy in the wartime years. He, in his famous interview with Francois Truffaut, he blatantly stated that what do we call rational narrative?
Plausibility.
Plausibility, thank you. Plausibility was not a great concern to him. And Hitchcock was known in some of his more famous films of assuming the audience isn't going to question something that happens. The 39 Steps requires quite a bit of open-mindedness on the part of the audience in terms of the way the narrative unfolds. He wanted to just keep the action moving.
Right.
And so, as you say, he's focusing on the cinematic side of things. And there are elements that stood out for me, or that stand out for me cinematically about the film. A few that come to mind are the editing. He worked with Derek Twist, who went on to cut Michael Powell's The Edge of the World, and will be a genre director himself by the 50s. These edits that I'm referencing clearly were planned ahead of time. We're thinking of when that awful crofter discovers his coat with the hymnal book has been given to this stranger.
Right.
And he moves off camera and you hear him slapping the wife, played by Peggy Ashcroft. There's a smash cut to the hymnal book containing a bullet lodged in it, and you hear the Scottish detective laughing. That's a great editing device. Right. And of course, the more famous one is where the charwoman comes upon presumably the murdered spy, opening her mouth to scream, and we hear the train whistle. Those would have been planned out in advance. There's a third that no one talks about. To me, it's very subtle. It's towards the end in the music hall. Donat has been scanning the music hall with his opera glasses. And he looks at the stage, and Mr. Memory is up there. Something connects with Donat, and they just do this abrupt cut to a medium close-up shot of Donat responding. It's very powerful. I don't know how to describe it, but it's a very simple edit that I think has a lot of impact.
Well, let's as it were, look a little bit backward on in Hitchcock's life and career, because he is one of those great directors of the classic Hollywood period who, like so many others, really got his start in silent film. And in his case, of course, he was British, but spent time on the continent as a young man, and had an omnivorous curiosity about what was happening in these extraordinarily exciting years of the 20s, particularly the late 20s, and what's going on in France, what's going on in Germany. Very early sound film, of which he is himself a great contributor. So how do you see that background in this film?
You see it in several moments, and these are little throwaway images. For example, the first one that jumped out at me is after the spy is killed or stabbed to death in the apartment. Donat is reaching down, and there's a shot of his hand removing from her hand the map of Scotland. It's just a beautiful little touch. And these are in no particular order that I'm giving them to you. There's the crofter's wife, Peggy Ashcroft, awakening in the middle of the night, assuming her husband is asleep. And there's this beautiful shot of her sitting up in bed with light coming through the window, very reminiscent of a silent film. That's quite beautiful. there's that sequence with the crofter, as Truffaut had pointed out, very much has elements of a silent drama. Now, there's what I consider an awkward example and a brilliant example.
Okay.
Awkward is where the Lucy Mannheim spy is saying to Robert Donat, there are two men, they're following me, they're watching me from outside. And Donat looks out the window and there's this empty street at night with two men perfectly standing under a lamppost looking up. And that usually gets a laugh from the audience.
Yeah.
However, later on, when Donat and Madeleine Carroll are escaping from these two men who claim to be detectives,
right,
and they're fleeing along the highlands, they're the sheep, and they're hiding under the bridge, there's this beautiful shot of the two evil men, or the two villains, standing on what appears to be a rocky ledge in this desolate landscape, this
right,
highland landscape, that's really beautiful.
Absolutely.
And it says much more to me, or it works more than that first example. So those little touches. Briefly, I know there was a shot filmed through a chair during a particularly dramatic moment, the slats of a chair.
Right.
The two men who are in the train compartment talking about lingerie. Briefly you see a point of view where a man is smoking a pipe, staring at the camera when the newspaper is partially covered. Little elements like that remind us of Hitchcock's silent roots.
Right, right. And this is interesting to me because that's when he is getting us so closely aligned with Richard Hannay, because that is, you know, in the jargon of our profession, that's an optical point of view shot. We're literally seeing through his eyes, and he is the man on the run, and we're, you know, trying to figure out things in exactly the way he does by observing what we're seeing with his eyes at that particular moment. And that's all part of the repertoire, the visual repertoire developed under the silent cinema, where you're getting close to somebody not through their dialogue, right, but through the observation of their movement, and you know, that can be, you know, a landscape shot, but it can also be this kind of thing of literally seeing through their eyes. Mm-hmm. I would bring up one other thing. When in the initial scene in the music hall, when we hear the shot of the gun and then there's the panic. Yes. This is the way that Hitchcock handles the fast cutting and the chaos of people trying to get out of the music hall, etc., is very, I'm not going to even say reminiscent, it is unquestionably influenced by Soviet montage.
Yes.
Editing of the 1920s from people like Sergei Eisenstein, Pudovkin, Dovzhenko, these people who, you know, up that pace and up that level of fragmentation of the image to give you that sensation of the chaos of being in the music hall crowd. So he's one of the things I so much admire about this film is that he weaves these things into his set pieces because he needs them, not because he's showing off that I know what the Russians were doing, mm-hmm, or I know what the Germans were doing. No, he's like all artists. He's you know, he's drawing from a repertoire that happens in his case to be an extraordinarily broad and deep repertoire of everything silent cinema can do, and also some of the, you know, he's one of the people who's pushing what sound cinema can do. That right, sound doesn't. This is a great dialogue film, but sound isn't just dialogue in this film. Absolutely.
Now that you mention it, I'm reminded, when you talked about the Soviet influences, once again, this is a throwaway thing where Donat is on the run. He's trying to locate, I guess, the mansion of that villain in Scotland. Right. And there's a low-angle shot where he's approaching a sign indicating the roads he's supposed to
right,
take. It's a very silent Soviet-era shot. There's something about it that touches on that kind of filmmaking.
Yeah, absolutely the case. Now, let's talk about him and the characters, because this is, again, I think this is one of the films that we begin to recognize. Well, it sets a template or a pattern in story as well as in a number of other ways. What do you find Hitchcockian about what he likes about the story?
Well, the Hitchcockian framework occurs in some of the comic relief elements, where you've got very serious stuff taking place, and then you'll have the train compartment scene where you have what appears to be a bishop or a vicar. He's observing these two men discussing ladies' undergarments. That's a little bit of comic relief. You have the crowd-pleasing scene where Donat is suddenly at a political rally. He's trying to conceal his handcuffs. He's giving this rousing, nonsensical speech that the audience loves, and the element that still makes one laugh, even if you're watching it by yourself, is when the police are leading him out of that lecture hall, and he's waving to the crowd, and they're applauding him. So those are the Hitchcockian elements, in the sense that trying to bring levity and interspersing with the narrative, something he will do even stronger in the future years. But then there's some weird absences, and I'd like your thoughts on this. It's curious that you see the Donat character getting shot, and then the next time we see him, he's in presumably a Glasgow police station. We don't see him being carried to wherever he was by the villains who thought they killed him. We don't see him stealing the car. A deliberate decision on Hitchcock's part, budgetary. What was your reaction to that? Is it missing for you?
Well, you know, you've already pointed out the fact that he's much more interested in his edit here than he's interested in the story logic. And he thinks that, and I think it's an excellent point you've already brought up, because that's exactly the moment in which we open it up and it says, well, you know, this is a, you know, it makes the comment about the hymn book, and the sheriff says, oh, well, some of those hymns are very hard to get through, you know, but it's the artistic or aesthetic power of that edit and the shock of it that you're saying, oh, wow, they just got from here to there. And so they move along fast enough. He doesn't give you time to think about the implausibility.
There's not a wasted frame. I mean, it just moved.
You know, and it's a major train film, but you can say this is a film that has a kind of locomotive of narrative. I mean, it's just gonna keep charging forward and not give you time to think about this. I mean, again, we haven't yet touched on the fact that this also, you know, has the romantic couple, the dueling couple who, through their task together, you know, find that they're bound. They begin as, you know, they begin as enemies. They kind of become frenemies, and by the end, you know, they're solving this together. And of course, we have that wonderful, you know, last shot of the two hands together, again with that restraint. All, you know, he doesn't end with the kiss. He ends with just the hands dangling there. So he wants us, you know, the logic of how fast they fall in love. Yeah. And that's another thing. I mean, it's on adrenaline, that relationship. I mean, mind you, you know, there is, you know, a pursuit, and there's all of that pressure. But you know, she comes back in the room and then just goes to sleep. You know.
But the wonderful thing is, at no point do any of the characters utter my 3 least favorite words in films: "I love you."
Oh, absolutely correct.
Because he doesn't. You get a sense of this building affection between the two characters in the scene you just cited so effectively. And apparently, and I believe it was Patrick McGilligan's biography mentioned this, there was a scene that originally followed the music hall scene at the end with the two of them, but Hitchcock wisely dropped it because what can be better than the camera moving in to their hands holding, and you see the handcuff dangling from it.
Oh, absolutely correct. And that last scene, I mean, the death of Mr. Memory. Again, Hitchcock, you know, is a death specialist in cinema because he is very interested. He knows what the run-of-the-mill production is, and somebody points a gun and there's a pop and somebody falls over. He's much more interested in all of these, you know, variations, and including, you know, things like the absurdity of this final scene. And I think that's one of the things you were also pointing towards, Max, because part of the function of comedy in the film is this kind of absurdist view of these things that are happening. I mean, Richard Hannay doesn't deserve this in some sense, it's like falling out of heaven, on him. And we have, the final thing of the girls kicking in the background in the back of the frame while this, in many ways, neutral little man is dying, in front of us. Trivia moment, Hitchcock does, and you know this as well, Hitchcock does mention the fact that Mr. Memory was based upon a real character in Music Hall. There was a person who had this act, and that's not in the novel, and it's one of those things he remembered from Music Hall when they were writing the script, and that's how it got in there, because it was based upon an actual act itself. There was somebody who really did this.
And I want to say Diam, D-I-A-M, so he had a one-word.
Yeah, I believe
the Memory Man, I believe he was called.
I think that's right, and our viewers can rush to their laptops and check that, at any particular moment. Yeah, go on, please.
Well, you reminded me when you were talking about the Madeleine Carroll Donat relationship. It's powerfully offset by the Peggy Ashcroft scenes. You couldn't picture two completely different women. And I thought that was fascinating balance. First, you have this mini tragedy at this farmhouse, this woman who is just in a terrible marriage, who longs to get away. And then you have this completely different relationship with Madeleine Carroll, and they balance each other powerfully.
Oh, very, very much so. And I'm glad you brought that up, because there's that wonderful moment. Peggy Ashcroft, a major actress, major, and to see her, many of us saw her only as an older woman, and then you see this vibrant young actress here. But that monologue, that very brief monologue she has about, have you seen Glasgow? Have you? And she talks about the lights and the movement and the urban life that she's left behind. And of course, in terms of the design of the film, it not only tells us about her character, the terribleness of the marriage, but we have that memory of London. We know exactly what she's referring to, because we're thinking, yeah, you mean it's like the place where Richard Hannay came from, the excitement of these British cities. So there's all this weaving of motifs in the film that I would say is also one of the reasons the film is so satisfying, because some of the motifs are woven together in ways that compensate for the narrative implausibility.
Well stated.
But it's so satisfying because it's so well designed. And this is where Hitchcock, one of the things he's coming into his own on is the Hitchcockian set piece. Go to a location, and what can you maximize about this location as cinema in some way? And we have the cyclical structure of a beginning in the music hall and ending in the music hall. But again, like the great Busby Berkeley musicals of the 30s, in which we're presumably watching something that's theatrical, okay? But in the Busby Berkeley sequences from Warner Brothers, for example, all of a sudden, and I point this out with my students, I said, we have just moved from anything that could possibly theatrical space into Busby Berkeley movie space, where time and space work completely differently. And, it's not extreme spectacle in the Berkeley way, but he's going to use every locations to a maximum, whether it be Hannay's apartment, whether it be particularly the music hall, the chase across the landscape, and let us not forget the scenes on the Forth Bridge,
which are beautifully lighted. And I particularly love, because you mentioned the use of sound. I just love you hear the baaing of the sheep in the background at one point. Oh. That's all you hear is the baaing as they're trying to escape. It's just a great use of sound.
Yeah, no. He does that, and it is all cinematically. Now I'm thinking of the train on the bridge. You're thinking of them. Oh,
Oh, the actual train on the bridge.
No,
My
these are both.
apologies. But two bridge scenes.
Yeah, but no, exactly. And again, back to my point about patterning, they're both terrific. You have them on foot with the fog, and that's a like expressionist treatment of it. And then when you have the fourth bridge, when the train is stopped on it. Again, I'm going to say the Soviet reference is like the celebration of great engineering. There's even the line he uses later about that great monument to Scottish engineering, the fourth bridge. But he uses that as an architectural site. And what's it like? Where do you hide on a bridge like that? And he's interested and how did he get that camera in that position to show us that? I mean, because we're looking and you're saying, this is kind of scary standing here.
The POV shot
yeah, absolutely.
Is very intimidating. And it reminds me of something that he often uses is rear projection.
Thank you.
Where you have either it's a slide image or it's a film image of real action that's projected behind the actors in a studio. And Hitchcock loved his in-camera effects and his technical effects. There's an awkward example and a strong example of how he bridges two scenes together to be a seamless take. When Donat gets on the train to go to Scotland, we see a shot of the train terminal. The camera pans to the left across the train. It's supposed to continue on to end with Donat peering out the window. But if you look carefully, there's a seam, there's an editing. You can tell they joined two shots. Right. Not smooth. However, when Donat and Carol are in the car being taken by these two villains who are posing as detectives, the camera, it's a mock-up car with a rear projection. The camera sweeps behind the car and picks up as a real car is going down the Scottish road. Seamless.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The master in the making. I would recommend to our viewers, if they haven't seen North by Northwest recently, they should see it again after they've seen the 39 Steps. Absolutely. Because they are members of the same family, and Hitchcock will rework a number of things in the 39 Steps in his later masterpiece, the North by Northwest. Max, we have actually come to the end of our chat about this. Hold on for a second. Thank you. If you'd like more information about City Cinematheque or in general about City University Television, there's a way to find out. Visit our website, www.tv.cuny.edu. You're going to find information there about City Cinematheque, all the other programming here at CUNY TV, and a number of links. So you can watch some of our shows on YouTube, or you can communicate with us. We love hearing from you. So please visit www.tv.cuny.edu. Max, thanks for bringing your expertise for us. It was a fast 30 minutes. There's a lot more to say, and I hope our viewers keep talking about it. You and I could go on for quite a while, but we can't. There's this whole television thing of time.
Thank you, Jerry. Wonderful to be on City Cinematheque.
A pleasure having you here. And I hope you've enjoyed your visit with us today, and I hope you return again to City Cinematheque as we continue our stroll through the archives of film history. But it's bye for now.